Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is the Rudy Giuliani Show on LindellTV. Well, we're still very much thinking about, worried about, concerned about, and gathering facts about that terrible shooting that took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota, at the Annunciation Church. Actually, whether it was intended for both the church and school seems very likely. It was intended to kill children. We do know that from the various documents that he left behind and insane writings. The politics of it has already entered into it. I must say, because of the Democrats. I mean, the president has made a few very, very warm and embracing remarks about how terrible it was and how the parents must feel. And my goodness, he offered prayers for them, but that's not allowed in Democrat America. The Democrats are now, among the other things they're adding to their platform for 2025 and 2026 is opposition to offering prayers for people who die. Now, I do that all the time, but after all, I'm a person they wanted to destroy. They completely baffle me in just how, I don't know the right word for it, amoral, evil they've become. Imagine at a time like this, saying enough with the prayers and the thoughts. What they want us to get onto is gun control. Well, they've got a gun control law in Minneapolis or Minnesota that's about as strict as you can have in the United States of America. It's an extraordinarily strict gun control law. The fact that this guy could get legally 3 weapons kind of tells you that gun control doesn't work. Gun control doesn't work because they prevent us from really truly identifying and separating people who are mentally ill. And anything I would suggest to increase that, they either have done away with in the past or would oppose. Many more stringent laws for having to report symptoms when they're observed. They'd say, oh, that would affect privacy. Or if there are situations in which people make observations of very, very odd behavior, a requirement of an examination, civil commitment, which we used to do rather broadly 40 years ago or so. One of the great Democrat senators, who was a friend of mine, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, would tell you what it was, and he could have told you this back in the 70s or the 80s or whenever it actually happened. We let them all out of mental hospitals. The people that are committing the murders, a lot of them, not all, would in the past have been in a mental hospital. We've cleaned them out. I can drive you around New York and I can show you all the empty hospitals there. Some of them are awful, some of them are beautiful. It shocked me when de Blasio and Cuomo, mayor, governor, didn't know they had beds in New York. They've got more beds in New York than I think they have Republicans, right? And I know where every single one of them is because I used to keep track of that in case of an emergency, because I was something called a mayor, not a phony, bullshitting politician or crooked or communist or one of the many things that they are. So this shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is a democratic dictatorship, this is the place where the Floyd situation occurred. This is the place where this mayor, who one would think would have been thrown out of office, did the unspeakable thing of giving up a police precinct to the Black Lives Matter rioters and criminals. The police had to run out of the prison, run out of the police precinct and give it over to them. First time I could ever think of a mayor doing that. But the little child is still in office. He's still a big jackass. The only thing he could think of to say in the wake of this was protect transgender people. Stop picking on transgender people. Honestly, at the time he said it, nobody was picking on him. Right? I don't know if anybody's picking on him right now, but nobody had time to pick on him before he decided that the most important thing he could say about the slaughter of innocent lives in a church was don't pick on transgender people. That's the same guy who gave up the police precinct. I would say more than any other single individual, he was responsible for the escalation of the riots. So if you have a business that was destroyed, a person that was killed, a place burned down, it's possible it wouldn't have spread that far if that guy didn't give up a police precinct. Just in case you think this is a Monday morning quarterback, I said it that day. I said, this is extraordinary. I can't imagine. I remember putting my dearly departed friend and hero, Bernie Kerik, on, and I said, Bernie, what's the chances that we would have given up that precinct? He said, they'd have to kill you. If I did it, you'd have fired me immediately. And if it was going to happen, you'd come and join me at the precinct. He was probably sitting in the bathroom crying. He displayed that yesterday. It had to be the single most insensitive, most idiotic thing. Saying to yourself, why do people vote for people like this? He's no way he can handle this, and nor could I see that. So Ted was giving me a note, but it's not legible. And so here's what happened. 8:30 yesterday morning. 8:30 yesterday morning. This guy, Westman or girl, or was a guy, became a girl, and now was rethinking that he should become a guy again, who was clearly mentally ill, which will get us to a much bigger subject, showed up around 8:30 in the morning, and he started shooting into a church, killed 2 children, wounded 20 people. And we're in the process of trying to figure out specifically what his motivation was. But we do have something that nobody will recognize, and if we don't recognize it, you're just lying if you say you care about protecting people in the future, children at all. Sure, we have to think about security for the schools and guns and whatever. But isn't this one too many killings by a transgender person now? Anybody have the guts to raise that? You have enough killings by transgender people that if it was a single individual, this would be a national serial killer. It'd be identified as a serial killer. And so one could say the transgender condition looks like there's more than a casual connection between that and rage and violence. Now, I'm raising that as a proposition that has to be examined. And if you tell me that's being prejudiced, you're damn right that it's being prejudiced in favor of the rights, the safety of our entire society, rather than just sensitivity to one small portion of it. And I think it's sensitivity to them too, because if you deal with their condition incorrectly, you're just getting more of them to commit suicide, which is what most European nations have had the guts to conclude. Not this silly country, however. And not when I say silly, I don't mean you and me. I mean the ones who dominate what intelligent people are supposed to think. What intelligent people are supposed to think is what science has told us for as long as they've been able to focus on things like mental illness. If you are a man and you think you are a woman, you have a mental illness. If you're a woman and you think you are a man, you have a mental illness, and it should be treated, not enabled. And it should be treated as a psychiatric, serious, life-threatening illness. Because either way you go, the potential for suicide is very, very high. But the more objective studies outside the United States, where there isn't the desire to make all this money that they make from it, is that more people die from transformations than they do if the transformation is withheld and the person is allowed to work their way through that period of time. Certain hasn't been examined enough to be definitive about it, but that sure looks like a very, very legitimate position that you're not allowed to express. We have with us, because another thing that came up yesterday, and I'm going to ask him about this as well, and therefore he just came to mind immediately, was the way Boy Mayor Fry and Jen Psaki, whatever her name is, the Jen Psaki. Yeah, congenital liar from the first part of the Biden administration,
Wacky
was
sacky.
on attacking prayer, demeaning it, demeaning prayer. Tells you a lot of why the Democrats put this country in the condition they did, probably more than anything else would. And I have with me Reverend Jackson Lehmeyer, who is, I think we just had him on a couple of days ago, but I thought he could explain to us, and I know he's got an event coming up, but could you explain to us, Reverend, just exactly how you look at this? People saying, at least right now, we don't have time to think about prayer. We have more important things to think about.
Mayor, it's good to be on with you, and absolutely terrible, and I just encourage people. It's in these times of great tragedy that, we definitely don't want to turn from God. We want to turn to God. And, you've been through terrible things like this as you were leading the city of New York. And you remember people turned to God during 9/11 and after 9/11. And so you hear people now, they're saying, mocking prayer, which is exposing who they are. Not, exposing the powerlessness of prayer, but exposing who they are as individuals. The mock prayer in a time like this is evil. Let's just call it for what it is. It's evil. And I'll promise you, people like Jen, how do you say her last name? Paskey. If she gets a diagnosis with cancer tomorrow.
I call it Little Red Lying Hood, Reverend. Please forgive me.
Yeah.
But I call it Little Red
that's
Lying
what she
Hood.
is. That's what she is. But if she was to get a diagnosis of cancer tomorrow, I promise you, she would be turning to prayer. We all, naturally, when we find ourselves in helpless situations, we turn to a higher power, who is God. And in these moments, that's who we need to turn to. And the mock prayer, there's a 12-year-old girl right now that is in ICU fighting for her life. And you know what we need to be doing for her? All Americans need to be praying for that little girl, that she'll come through, she'll survive, and have a story of God's goodness in her life. And so it's sad. But to your point, the Democrats, they have proven something. They hate God. They hate the family. They hate Christianity. And listen to this, Mayor. This is incredible. I saw this stat today. Attacks on churches is up over 700% since 2018. 700% increase in attacks on churches. Christianity is under attack in the United States of America. So we got to pray. But then, yes, we got to put feet to our prayers. There's got to be action behind these things. And the trans terrorism, trans violence, it's unbelievable. Nashville, here in Minnesota. And so it's a mental illness that we got to stop celebrating it. Listen, transgenders, they are not brave. They are not courageous. They are not heroes. They need help. We don't need to be celebrating them. We need to be helping them. And unfortunately, too many people have died because of the stupidity of the American culture, especially the political machine.
Well, and there's also, I think, a question that has to be examined. I don't know the answer to it. But there is a question of whether there's a more than casual connection between that mental illness and rage and violence. Or might it be the drugs they use? I mean, there's a lot of medical thought, particularly in Europe, that when you use these gender changers, particularly like introducing a great deal of testosterone very quickly, when you're going from female to male, or the vice versa, when you're introducing female hormones into a biologically male body, you don't know what you're doing. And there have been more than a few murders that have been, there've been in 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, we got 7, 8, 9 murders by transgender people, some of them mass murders. That's a lot of people. Right. I mean, if that were one group, if that were the Proud Boys, we'd all know that.
that organization would have been condemned as a terrorist organization.
Yeah, I mean, that isn't a political statement. I make that statement as a former prosecutor and law enforcement officer. That is a necessary examination for law enforcement. You want to prevent this, you got to look for the characteristics of the people who do it. More likely than others. In my opinion, I think is that one of them. That one is crying out for examination.
I think it's so sad how much death the transgender movement has produced, not just with the mass shootings at schools or places like
with
that,
them,
but the suicide
with them
rate
too.
among they are in an internal civil war, and there's rage, there's violence, and the suicide rate is so high. That's why I say we got to stop celebrating this movement. We have to address it. They need help. They need
Absolutely,
serious
Reverend.
serious help.
And that come. I mean, there is no doubt that the people that have perpetuated this and have sort of breed people to do this and brainwash them to do it. It's like the way they take advantage of the homeless people. They're
Right?
taking advantage of them for political purposes. In fact,
Yeah,
you and I
it's
love
sad.
them. I love them. I mean,
It's what it's
to me, they're. It's like the homeless people. I consider any city that has a lot of homeless people to be have a very mean mayor. You don't let people live on the streets, and if they need to be
right.
forced off it, you force them off it because they're going to get killed eventually. Well, Jackson, you
Yes.
go to your event, and thank you very much for your wisdom. It really helps a great
Thank
deal
you,
to
sir.
put this in proper perspective. Thank you very much, Reverend. Please. We'll show you a copy of it a little bit later, but you get his book right away. I've read his book now 1.5 times, and it's there it is, Chasing After the Wind, and it's a very, very, very interesting, thought-provoking. I don't know what you describe it as. It's a story. It's a how-to book. It's how to be happy. Not bad, right? Don't you want to be happy? And that man is not only is a great reverend and a great preacher, and he's a great thinker. Well, this, of course, has raised this issue to the forefront, and it's what good do we do for people if we lie to them and take advantage of them and convince them that something that needs to be treated can be ignored? I mean, they're really just being exploited by the Marxists and the ideologues and the people who are looking to create issues. I would say a few of the things that we can look at here was the police response couldn't have been better. I mean, there was a cop there, I think within 10 minutes, and then the rest of the cops were there pretty fast. The police officer, it appears as if, and again, these facts may change a little as they feel free to put more of the facts out. The Minnesota police were charging him, but one Minnesota policeman who got there first charged at him, and that may very well have saved the charging is what stopped him from shooting. And then, of course, he shot and killed himself, which I guess he had planned to do. It looks like he did from the things that he left behind. The so-called, I don't know what you would call this. You know, they called it the manifesto in the Tennessee case where there was a transgender person again, and they hid it for months and months and months. They wouldn't put it out. Had that been a right-wing conspirator of some kind, it'd have been on the New York Times for 40 days in a row. And this is very, very horrible thing to do about something like this, because it keeps you away from examining the possible things that you can look at that could be handled differently to prevent some of this, particularly with regard to mental illness. Or I think everyone will agree that this person, Westman, was mentally ill, and everyone will also agree it wasn't recognized. Well, what is it that we missed? Well, since we can't say that he's a biological male and he thinks he's a female, and apparently recently undergoing rethinking that. I don't know how much change he brought about. I don't know anatomically if he changed himself or he didn't. But his recent writings suggest that he really was starting to think that he was a boy again. Now, if you can't realize without condemning people that this is mental illness. You can't condemn people for mental illness. But then again, you can't ignore it. You can't ignore it for their benefit, or obviously for the benefit of the people who were shot and killed in Minnesota. I mean, he's dead too. What good did it do to ignore it? To ignore the fact that this was a condition in which he's crying out for help, not encouragement into a process where the rotten, horrible medical industrial complex, pharmaceutical industrial complex can make a $400,000 to $500,000. So I hesitate to think it will. They'll just talk about useless gun control again. But shouldn't this require an examination of what's the connection between the condition of being seriously transgender and the possibility of violence, or maybe the possibility of rage and not being able to handle it? And wouldn't some concentration on that as people go through this process, rather than just accommodating them and pushing them to something from which you can make a lot of money? Like some doctors are known to give you tests that you don't need because they can get a lot of reimbursement for it. So I would say it is true that we don't know the specific motive for this. We don't know if he did this because he had animosity toward that church. It sounds like there's some of that in the writings, but the writings are so insane. Yeah, insane that it's impossible to really follow them completely. But he definitely wanted to do the killing in that church. And he seemed to want to kill children. And he would have considered it a failure if he had killed adults. That's strange, very, very strange, right? And I just wish we could concentrate on the things that we can take out of this that could help prevent or reduce, if we can't prevent, the number of times that this happens in the future. I should emphasize that among the people who called for prayers was the left-wing Democrat governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. He had his little boy mayor, who he should have gotten rid of when he gave up the police station in 2020, was giving us a lecture about how we shouldn't target the transgender community before anybody did. And number two, that this prayer and thought thing, we better do a lot more than that. Yeah, the things we have to do, little boy mayor, are all things you oppose. Otherwise, if you really had some good ideas about this, maybe it wouldn't have happened. But number two, your city wouldn't have so much damn crime. But you also don't have any police in your city. What are you down to? What, 1,000 out of, you used to have 3,000? Same problem Washington had. Washington was patrolling the streets with 410 people, cops, because they defunded and never refunded the police. Now, all of a sudden, Trump doubles or triples the number of patrol officers, and crime takes a holiday. Oh, and police patrol doesn't work. Only social workers who come and tell you about being peaceful work. So, again, the killer's name was Robert or Robin Westman. He was 23 years old. The shooting was at the Annunciation Catholic Church at their mass in which they were celebrating the beginning of school. It was the second day of school. Fortunately, in that school, they mix up the youngest ones with the oldest ones. In other words, I gather from what I was reading, like we used to do when I was in Catholic school, which was forever. That's not because I didn't graduate, because I had a long education. we used to sit with our grade, but they apparently put the older children with the younger children. The priest who was celebrating Mass, so this apparently occurred right at the beginning of Mass. It occurred after the priest led the procession into the church, and he was intoning, or I don't know if it was a sung Mass or not, but he was at the point of the introductory. The congregation had finished the introductory hymn, and he was beginning the introductory prayers. And that's when he heard, he's not sure if he first heard shouting or he first heard a gunshot. And then it is described as if there was no yelling, no screaming. They just in a very disciplined way, they went down as deeply far down into the pews or kneelers as they could. And until the police officer got there and Westman was distracted by him and realized it was over, he just continually shot 116 rounds, they think. That's a lot. They have to have gone through drills to have acted that disciplined. And when you watch the kids who were interviewed, in a strange way, they were ready. I don't say they were ready for this, but they had been taught some very, very practical and good security techniques. Think about a fifth grader, Weston Halsney. We had him on. We put him on yesterday. So did everyone else. The kids.
I'll play that again.
Yeah, but listen to what he described. And I bet we don't have the name of the young man who saved his life or saved him from being wounded because he took the shot, Victor. But Victor had to be trained to do this. So did.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be okay. And then my friend, he was like laying on top of me, like making sure I was safe, and he got hit. So that was really brave of him.
And you have a nick on your neck?
Yeah, that was, I don't even know what it's from. Kind of looks like debris or something.
But that came from during this?
Yeah.
How are you feeling? You seem pretty put together here, but it's got to be tough.
Yeah, I'm just like confused.
Hey, adorable. I mean, it's just adorable. I mean, just think of it. If it weren't for Victor, he might not be with us today, right? This is what we have sacrificed to political correctness. I'm sorry, I do not believe this would have happened if it wasn't for the political correctness that has held our country hostage for about 10 years. Because the things I'm talking about, we can't talk about generally. You're not going to hear much discussion about all the. And again, I raise this as a responsible question, not a conclusion. You can't be serious about wanting to protect the lives of children in the future and not examine the possibility of a link between the mental illness of and the treatments that are given for and the way it's handled now, because we didn't have a big outbreak of transgender mass murderers 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Or if we did, we didn't know about it. It seems like this is coincident with our glorifying it as in order to deal with whatever stress or whatever feelings they have, we humor them, or we're afraid to deal with the reality of it. What good does it do to do that when someone is mentally ill? And how far are you going to drive them? It reminds me of homelessness. You know, they always would say homelessness, we have to have better housing policies. No, we have to have better housing policies. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with homelessness. I mean, I've known that for 40 years. Is there a reason why the least amount of homelessness probably in the last 50 years in New York City is when I was mayor? The reason there is because I understood it. I wasn't afraid to deal with it. I didn't think I was a real kind person by letting people live on the streets. I thought you have to be kind of a bastard to do that, a selfish bastard. I mean, all you have to do is do a slight bit of thinking or praying, and you realize that I got myself through, and I handled all the social problems in New York City, ends up with being Republican conservative solutions. It also ends up having me condemned by all of the idiots who had come before me. But there wasn't a single one who had 10% of the success that I had. So I looked at it this way. The Democrat, liberal, communist, Marxist look at social policy from a government engineering point of view. I look at it from an individual human being point of view. And I asked the question, what would I do if it was my brother? How would I handle my brother? If my brother were a drug addict, would I give him money to buy drugs? Would I argue for the legalization of drugs? Or would I force him if I had to pick him up and put him in a car and take him to the best rehabilitation center I could find? Well, of course, I do the last one. And if my brother was on the street homeless, what would I do? Give him $5 so he could buy drugs or alcohol? Pretend that it's a housing problem, when in fact, it's quite obvious that he's probably a paranoid schizophrenic or an alcoholic? No, I deal with the paranoid schizophrenia or the alcoholism. We find out why he's on that street. And I'd use every persuasive ability and other abilities that I had. That people call that tough love. No, it's love. It's wanting to save him rather than just saying, oh, let's deal this with political. Let's not get any political heat over this. All those crazy liberals that get mad at me if I take them up off the street. But what the hell, let them die, which is what happens on the street. That's the thinking of a mayor who has a lot of homelessness in their city. I wrote this 13 years ago or 14 years ago. If you see a city with a lot of homeless people, you see a city with a mayor that is extraordinarily incompetent and mean and has no love for people. Because otherwise, the mayor, him or her, wouldn't be able to live with themselves with all these people living on the street while they're living nice and cozy in their mansion. Same thing here. We get past this and we don't take a good look at the whole issue of the sick way in which we're dealing with gender. Also, if we're not ready to realize where it comes from, and it comes from Marxism. That's where it comes from. The Black Lives Matter people were at the heart gender activists. They turned to race because they knew they could raise a lot of money that way. But their real background as trained Marxists, communists, was to use gender issues to divide people, and to also make us even more amoral or immoral than we were. Because the further you can get there, the better chance there is to flip us. All of this is on purpose. All of it is by design. All of it is part of the extended plan of Marx and Engels. And it's a shame that more of us don't realize it. And then we were shocked. Well, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Because it's being directed that way, and not everyone is conscious of it, but it's going on. Just too many things that fit the playbook. One of them being the spread of a valueless society. Which is what we have. So what do we know? What do we know about him? Well, we'll get into that when we come right back. And then some observations on what we can do about it. How we can take something from this that might allow us to actually slow these down, because they're really getting to be ridiculous now.
Welcome to Vocal, the free speech social app that gives you a platform to amplify your voice, speak freely, connect boldly, and be part of a growing movement for truth, faith, and freedom. Want to know what's happening right now? The Now Playing feature shows you exactly who's live and what's streaming in real time. Check out the show's feed, a non-stop lineup including LindellTV News 24/7, shows and on-demand programming all in one place. Connect with your favorite host and never miss a show. Explore the featured page for quick access to LindellTV's top shows. Follow your favorites and watch their newest content flow right into your feed. And when they go live on Vocal, you can join the live chat and be part of the action. Ask questions, share your thoughts, even help shape future shows. Stay informed on issues around securing our elections by following your state's Cause of America account. Join a group and connect on a deeper level, from faith and freedom to the future of our nation. Go to vocal.com or download the app today and be a part of the mission to save our country.
Too many pharmacies and insurance companies are blocking the medications that actually work. That's why I recommend All Family Pharmacy. They give you access to treatments like ivermectin now, starting at just $2 a capsule. They also have methylene blue, hydroxychloroquine, and so much more. They're helping you stay prepared, and they've dropped their prices by 25%. Also use promo code LindellTV, you save even more. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Lindell. Use promo code LindellTV and get the medicine you need. With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com. Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at nirvantahealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet. Get Nirvanta instead and experience the difference. Go to nirvantahealth.com. Use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvanta Health. Live well naturally. If you want to drop extra pounds, boost energy levels, and reduce swelling in your legs and feet, then this message is for you. Pure Health Research is on a mission to make America healthy again. And 2 of their best-selling health supplements are leading the way. First is Liver Health Formula. Over 100 million Americans have a sluggish liver that's riddled with fatty deposits. This can kill your metabolism, pile on the pounds, and make you feel tired. Liver Health Formula takes care of that. It supports thriving liver health with special nutrients like artichoke extract and milk thistle. This is one of the easiest ways to slim down and revitalize your energy levels. Next is lymph system support. If you struggle with fluid buildup or swelling in your legs, ankles, and feet, this is for you. The natural ingredients in lymph system support help gently flush away extra fluid and toxins out of your body. And right now, for a limited time, you can get 35% off Liver Health Formula and Lymph System Support. along with 50 plus other health supplements that Pure Health Research has to offer. So head over to purehealthresearch.com and use promo code Lindell at checkout. That's purehealthresearch.com, promo code Lindell to save 35% on your order today.
Well, I want you to take a look. Welcome back. This is Rudy Giuliani, just in case, on the Rudy Giuliani Show. I want you to take a look at this. This is not a list that I prepared. This is a list that we found. We haven't had a chance to vet it completely. And there are a couple that I would not necessarily have put on here. But let's take a look at this, and we'll go in reverse order. These are the mass killings that have taken place where we know or have very, very strong evidence that the murderer was transgender. And it does seem to me that the number is just too great for it to be just a random thing that should be not examined. I mean, for the useless mayor of Minneapolis to come out and as a result of this, the first two things on his mind was to not attack transgender people. Well, nobody had attacked transgender people. Sounds awful defensive, doesn't it? It sounds like he has the same suspicion that we have, but he's not going to do anything about it, nor is anybody else, because not many people have raised this. But they have raised the question, what can we do as a better job to identify these people in the future? Well, it really is in the area of mental illness. And here's the problems we have with mental illness. We don't identify it. And when we do identify it, we don't do anything about it. Well, maybe if we started to figure out some of the commonality between these people, we'd start to be able to identify it more readily and not condemn everybody because everybody doesn't have the condition, but at least look a little more carefully. So the most recent transgender killing was the one by Robin Westman. But back in February of 2024, Genesee, also known as Jeffrey Ivan Moreno, you remember the Lakewood church shooting. Well, you might not remember because they did everything they could to give it as little attention as possible. Or how about just a month earlier than that, in Perry, Iowa, Dylan Butler. If you want to see it, we have him here. Or back in July of 2023, Kim Brady Carrica in Kingston, Philadelphia. And then in Kayla Denker was he, whatever it was had an AK-15 posing with it on Transgender Day of Vengeance. And then this one you may remember, this got a fair amount of attention, then got covered up. This would be in March 27, 2023, Orchard Elizabeth Hale. And that was the Covenant Christian School. That was covered up for months and months and months. And now you can go on. You can see the rest of them. 11/9/2022 in Colorado Springs. Then in 2022 in Highland Park in Chicago. And then in Uvalde. That I think you probably remember. So these are the ones that we can identify. And we don't have to identify any others so that any responsible law enforcement person would say, this is a situation worth examining to see what is it in the situation, in the illness itself, or could it be the treatment of the illness that creates a disproportionate number of murderers who want to kill others. We do know that the condition breeds suicide. And it's a tragic debate that is going on where the Americans who are trying to protect a multi-billion, if not trillion-dollar industry will say that you're going to commit suicide if you don't go through gender-changing treatment or go through mutilation. Well, over in Europe, the doctors come to absolutely opposite condition, that the overutilization of that now, that the proselytizing and pushing for it is what's causing the suicide. Because the suicide happens more often when you go through the transition and then start to have doubts about it. Now, notice in his writings, there's only one example we saw, but that's enough, that he was questioning whether he really is a boy now. So he was a boy. He was born that way. He for some reason, decided he wanted to be a girl. His mother, who worked at that school, signed for him. And then he went through a transition, and his name was changed. We don't know, was this a transition in name only? Was it a transition with serious drugs that were administered? Was it a transition in which there was any kind of mutilation of his body? I don't know that. But we do know that for some period of time, he had his name changed from Robert to Robin and wanted to be considered a girl. He has not changed back, but he was in writing, among other things, including announcing that he wanted to kill President Trump. He said he was questioning whether he shouldn't go back to being a boy, and maybe he was still capable of being able to go back to being a boy. But if he went through very significant gender change, he might never be able to go back in any meaningful way. And then, according to the studies that were done in Sweden and, if I recall correctly, Norway and England, in England, you're not allowed to change your gender, even with parental permission, until you're, I don't remember if it's 19 or 21. And they have a left-wing government. But maybe they have more common sense than we do, or more courage in trying to resist the woke policies that are homicidal. We don't seem to have that ability, or we don't seem to have had that ability. It is quite possible with the administration of Donald Trump that will now change. Let's hope that that's the case. This is I guess that's Robin. If you want to look at this is Robin Westman. So that's him in his version as a female, and there he is with his mom, who worked at the Annunciation School, I think, and retired just a while back. Now, I assume here he was a boy still, although I do see an earring on him. I don't know what that indicates, or two earrings. I've always been a boy, and I don't remember wearing an earring. But this is the cover of his. I would hesitate. His random musings, the musings of an insane mind, is what I would describe it as. And these are some of the inscriptions on his weapons and the things he had with him. Where is your God? So I guess like Little Red Riding Hood and the boy mayor of Minnesota, he doesn't care much for prayer. Doesn't think he could do much. He's saying, because he knew he was going to kill him, that he's going to demonstrate to them that God doesn't take care of them. Where is your God? And then he goes and kills them in church. I don't know, maybe that's wrong, but that seems like a pretty reasonable interpretation. The rest of them you can see. I think you can see what they say. There's another one. Kill pedophiles? I don't know. Well, you're here. And then this is his outline of the church, where the pews are, where the kids are. I don't know if he followed a plan in doing the shooting or he didn't. But then in the video that's since been deleted from online, at one point in it, he puts that knife right through the plan here. And that's the little boy we just heard from. Just a few of some of the pictures from the day. There he is again, as that girl in trauma. And I did want you to see the inscription on the top of the church, because I don't know if this helped me, but I guess the communists like Little Red Riding Hood wouldn't see much good in this. The house of God and the gate of heaven. So if these children had to die, you couldn't be any closer to heaven, huh? Please, let us take a moment now and pray for them and their families. It'll do a lot of good, a lot more than most of these politicians are going to be able to do. You just do it in your own way. I'm going to stop for a minute, and I'm going to just say a little prayer and hope that they have the strength and the courage to deal with this, and pray for the peace and the repose of the souls of these innocent little angels. Well, I guess if they were in power, they'd put us in jail now, right? I mean, like during the pandemic, we weren't allowed to do that, at least not in public. They tried to cancel Easter and the high holy days. And I actually think part of the reason why this political party has become evil is because they are at war with God.
Does it get any more evil, Mayor?
It's one thing to be at war with us, and to be at war with God.
But does it get any more evil than mocking prayer after kids were shot dead inside a church?
Let's go a little deeper into it and show you how damn insensitive they are. And they are. As somebody who's been a victim of their unfair and unbelievably maniacal persecutions, these people are evil people. So I have every right to say that. Now I can give you a chapter and verse. But can you imagine? This was a killing in church. The people who were suffering, both those who lost children and those who almost lost children, are frightened as hell. Absolutely believe in God. I mean, maybe a few don't, but most of them do. They were killed in church. And you're telling them not to pray. Who the hell are you to tell them not to pray? Psaki? What's your qualifications? Biggest liar as a press secretary? Oh, no, there's one other that could probably... Stupidest looking jackass, Little Red Riding Hood. You got an IQ of a worm, and you got the sensitivity of a vicious communist. And it sounds like you got communist leanings. That's why you're so hostile to prayer. Even if you don't believe in God, you can't be sensitive enough to keep your mouth shut about that when religious people just have been attacked like that. Imagine if it was a Muslim congregation and somebody said, yeah, what the hell are they doing praying to Muhammad for? If he were there, he would have killed more of them. You'd have gone nuts. Because you're not a good person. You're some kind of a modern, left-wing, Democrat, communist-leaning automaton without a feeling in your entire body. Well, you sure give a good imitation of that. And the mayor, he shouldn't be there. How long do you keep an absolutely dangerous incompetent in office? Now, don't ask me that question, because New York reelected de Blasio after he got cops killed, which is why they turned their backs on him. And they reelected him. It was one thing to elect the communist jackass. There's another thing to reelect him, and now look what we're doing. I hope, and I pray to God that he spreads the wisdom out more broadly. Well, as that's going on, we have other things in the world that are also going on. And we're going to have to cover that when you now move over to X, so you can listen to America's Mayor live. But we'll talk about Ukraine and about Putin, and also about Iran and how they're trying to sneak out of the snapback provisions that could actually crush them and avoid the necessity of any more military action if we let that happen, or if France and and Germany let it happen. So we'll be back tomorrow night here on Lindell's TV. And right now, we're going to go over to X, and we'll be talking in about 4 minutes. God bless America.